There is a park on Rayburn Avenue where, in the summer, dog walkers loop the perimeter and children kick footballs on the grass. It is perfectly, relentlessly ordinary. Lined with 1930s semi-detached houses and neat front gardens, it is the kind of quiet place that London absorbs without noticing. Older neighboring towns usually possess a human origin story to explain their existence. Just a mile and a half south, Surbiton was founded by a bankrupt, visionary baker named Thomas Pooley, who laid out crescents for the Victorian elite before losing his estate to a pair of ruthless banks. Berrylands has no Thomas Pooley. No eccentric figure claimed it. There is no founding charter, no church on a hill, and no battle on a meadow to give the streets a myth. Instead, this town arrived through a contract. In April 1932, a corporate syndicate signed a deal. Over the next 18 months, a massive grid of streets, a railway station, and thousands of homes were conjured up entirely from scratch. A complete human settlement poured out of a developer's pen between two summers. To manufacture a town at that industrial speed, you cannot work around what is already there. You have to completely obliterate whatever history is sitting on the land. Before the developers arrived, these fields had been quiet dairy pasture for 1,000 years. Running through them was the Hogs Mill, a rare, pristine chalk stream, fed by water rising through ancient marine geology. The river was so vibrant that in the summer of 1851, the painter John Everett Millais sat on its banks for 5 months. He painted the willows, the meadowsweet, and the clear water inch by careful inch to create the background for Ophelia, one of the most famous images in British art. A generation later, a flamboyant French restaurateur bought the surrounding farmland and built Regent House. He laid out a walled private deer park and imported the West End elite, filling the Surrey nights with orchestras and Clicquot champagne. Guest lists included Adelina Patti, the most celebrated and expensive opera diva of the 19th century, performing under frescoed ceilings deep in the countryside. When the 1930s syndicate bought the land, they didn't adapt the estate. They demolished the mansion to its foundations and laid the tarmac of a new road directly across the footprint of the ballroom. They then stripped the natural curves out of the ancient chalk stream, trapping it inside concrete toe boarding to turn it into a sterile drainage channel. The corporate method requires a blank slate. Deliberate physical erasure of the organic past is the first necessary step to building a modern suburb. With the land cleared, the syndicate executed their opening move. They approached the Southern Railway and offered to pay for 90% of a new station on the main line. They were subsidizing transit to instantly manufacture real estate demand. Because they owned the land outright, they didn't build house by house. They laid miles of road surface and electrical mains first. Materials arrived by lorry from the Midlands, allowing specialized trades to sweep down the new avenues in a rolling wave, breaking ground on hundreds of plots simultaneously. This was town building as an industrial assembly line. Thousands of homes were stamped into the mud at a relentless, mechanized pace. To mask this brutal mass production, the developers applied a specific costume. They dressed the rational, modern floor plans in mock Tudor facades, half-timbered gables, leaded lights, and steeply pitched clay roofs. Partnering directly with building societies, they aggressively marketed these identical facades to salaried city clerks. For a £5 deposit, a young family could escape a cramped London flat and buy into the illusion of a rustic English country cottage. There was one bizarre exception in this sea of Tudor beams. On a small fork in the road, a separate developer dropped in an enclave of stark, brilliant white modernist houses, compressing the aesthetic of a European ocean liner into a Surrey cul-de-sac. Whether mock Tudor or Art Deco, the logic was identical. Speed, profit, and repeatable templates replaced organic growth, turning the creation of a town into a standardized production line. To complete the sales pitch, the new suburb needed a civic centerpiece. In May 1934, the local council opened the Lagoon, a massive, unheated Art Deco swimming pool, slightly longer than Olympic size. With its whitewashed terraces and bright blue geometric fittings, it was designed to sell a Mediterranean illusion. During hot summers, thousands of locals packed shoulder to shoulder along the concrete banks of the freezing Surrey water. But there was a biological cost to this 18-month build. Pumping 250,000 new indoor bathrooms into a rural network designed for Victorian chamber pots rapidly overwhelmed the existing infrastructure, leading to raw sewage routinely overflowing into the river. The solution was a massive new treatment works hidden in the low-lying valley of Lower Marsh Lane. Built to secretly absorb the waste of a ballooning population, it generated a deeply unmentionable smell that has lingered over the neighborhood for decades. The new station, the Tudor facades, and the Lido made the idyll possible, but every manufactured suburb relies on polite, obscured industrial machinery to handle the messy consequences of its own existence. By the autumn of 1939, the speculative corporate machine ground to a sudden halt. The outbreak of the Second World War withdrew the cheap mortgages and redirected the labor, freezing the neighborhood in place with muddy roads and abandoned building plots. Inside, the carefully curated country cottage illusions were dismantled. Heavy industrial steel cages, called Morrison shelters, were dragged into front sitting rooms, displacing the furniture so families could sleep under a surface engineered to survive a collapsing ceiling. Berrylands was supposed to be safe, but because it sat directly beneath the dead-straight railway line that German bomber crews used to navigate toward central London, it caught a disproportionate share of explosives from pilots dropping their payloads early. The terror became specific in 1944. Unmanned V-1 flying bombs buzzed heavily over the rooftops. When the engine cut out, residents had 10 seconds to dive into those steel cages before impact. After the war, the world of speculative interwar housing was dead. Over the decades, the civic illusions decayed. The massive Art Deco lagoon cracked under harsh winters, leaked thousands of gallons of treated water, and was quietly filled in with earth and rubble by the council. Today, that rubble is the park on Rayburn Avenue. The children kicking footballs on the grass are running directly over the deep end of that buried 1930s pool. But the corporate machine didn't catch everything. A single Victorian gatekeeper's cottage still hides among the Tudor semis, and down in the valley, conservationists have spent years using woven willow branches to speed up the current of the ancient chalk stream, finally washing away the 1930s silt to expose the flinty gravel the painters knew. A suburb is not a place without history. It is a monument to capital's attempt to hide it. But if you look closely enough at the ground beneath your own street, you will find that the erasure always misses something.